This is Dr. Ala from Izydorczyk Foundation. Today I'll be discussing our KAP survey results that we did as part of our impact analysis for our Bangkok CNVR program. So firstly, a little bit about Izydorczyk Foundation. We are a not-for-profit animal welfare organization. We have been active and are registered in Thailand for the past 21 years. Izydorczyk has been instrumental in banning the dog meat trade in Thailand, and we're well known for our pioneering work in large-scale intensive CNVR across the nation. Our programs are endorsed by the government, and we have recently been recognized by the Princess, which was a big honor. We have sterilized and vaccinated over 1,200,000 free-roaming dogs and cats so far, and this includes over 1 million dogs. In the capital of Bangkok, we are in partnership with Dogs Trust Worldwide. We started with only one mobile team in 2016, and currently we have 10 mobile teams working in the Greater Bangkok area and the neighboring Chachoengsao province. So it is 7 provinces in total. We've sterilized over 500,000 dogs since 2016 under this program. We do regular impact assessment, which includes the animal welfare survey, which we do annually, rabies data analysis, which we get from the DLD, and the KAP survey. Our animal welfare survey results show us that there has been a large decline in the free-roaming dog density by 54% over the last 7 years. Also, there has been marked improvement in dog welfare, which is evidenced by their improved body condition scores and improved skin condition scores. Also, the rabies data looks good, with cases declining over the years. Cases have declined significantly over time, with an average reduction of 3% in rabies cases per month. And if you look at the graph, you will see that as the CNVR effort increases, the number of rabies cases decreases. So you might be thinking, why do a KAP survey? If our animal welfare survey already showed us an improvement in dog welfare and rabies data analysis shows a decline in rabies, why do we have to do another survey? Well, it's important to check if people are noticing the impacts of our program, right? Can people see and feel the difference? It's important to note, if you're going to be advocating for CNVR as an effective dog population management strategy to the government, they will be interested to know what the citizens think. Street dogs are a man-made problem, right? So understanding the problem will help us find solutions. Our KAP 2023 aims were to explore the differences in attitudes and behaviors towards free-roaming dogs in the areas of Greater Bangkok, receiving different levels of CNVR effort over the past 7 years, and also to explore the owned dog population, including making an estimate of the number of owned dogs in the Greater Bangkok area and the care provided to them. So the KAP survey was done as a face-to-face interview over a period of about 1 month. We had a team of 20 people working in pairs, knocking on doors. They were incognito to avoid bias. There was no mention of Izydorczyk Foundation on our consent form, although some people did ask. It was a stratified random sample of households. So basically the administrative areas were categorized into having received either no CNVR effort, so that's the control group, 1, 2, or 3 rounds of CNVR. And then 25 random areas were selected from each of these categories, creating a sample of 100 administrative areas for the KAP survey. And then within each sample area, 16 random GPS points were created from areas identified to be residential areas. The interview team was requested to travel to each point and select the 2 closest households for interview. If there was no one home or the householder refused to take part, which a few did, then they chose the next closest household until they had completed 2 surveys for the point before moving to the next point. And so in the end, we did have a large sample of respondents, 3,203 to be exact, balanced across the 4 levels of CNVR intervention. All right, so now on to our key findings from the KAP survey. So regarding the owned dog demography and care practices, we found that dog ownership was quite high at 21.2%, with a mean of 1.6 dogs per dog owning household. So from this we can estimate that the owned dog population of the Greater Bangkok region is just under 1.3 million dogs. Now, not so surprisingly, and quite typically for Thailand actually, a large proportion of these owned dogs are allowed to roam. This is another reason why we do sterilize owned dogs, owned free roaming dogs, because they do contribute to the street dog population. So here we found that 66% of unowned dogs are allowed to free roam. We also found that 83% of the free roaming owned dogs are vaccinated, which is quite high, but still leaving 17% of these owned free roaming dogs unvaccinated against rabies, right? And they are those dogs that are much more epidemiologically significant. We found that within this owned dog group, there's a flat age structure with a mean age of 4.2 years, which suggests that they have a relatively low reproductive activity and also low mortality. 61% of owned dogs were sterilized, leading to an estimated 500,000 intact owned dogs in Greater Bangkok area. Within our sample of owned dogs, females are much more likely to be sterilized than males. 65% of females were spayed, and only 44% of males are castrated, which I think is a trend seen worldwide, really. Vaccination against rabies is high. It's estimated about 88% for the owned dog population in all of Greater Bangkok. Low vaccination coverage of owned roaming dogs, though, as we spoke about before, is counter to epidemiological relevance for rabies transmission, as roaming dogs have a far higher contact rate than confined dogs, so much more likely to catch rabies and spread rabies, right? We also found that only 15% of the owned dogs in our sample had received vet care within the previous year, with confined dogs being more likely to have seen a vet than owned roaming dogs. What we learned about owned dog population dynamics was that most owned dogs in our sample had been acquired through adoption of a street dog. There were slightly more dogs acquired than leaving households in the previous year, so it suggests that there's a growth in the owned dog population. Most dogs that had left the household had died on the road in a road traffic accident or had died of an illness. So regarding street dogs, and by street dogs we mean community dogs, as well as feral dogs, and probably a couple of free roaming owned dogs as well who do not belong to the feeder. Well, what we found was that 14.3% of households had provided care to a street dog within the previous week. Thailand is well known for the feeding culture, so there are hundreds of thousands of dog feeders and cat feeders across Thailand. So we also found that dog-owning households were more likely to have provided care than non-owners. 13.5% of households reported being annoyed or troubled by a dog or dogs in their neighborhood within the previous month. And only 1.5% of households reported having experienced a dog bite in the previous year. These households reported a total of 51 bites, so I mean 1.1 bites per household. Regarding the perception of the number of dogs on their soil, when asked for their opinion of the number of dogs roaming on their soil today, the most common response was that I have no opinion on this number of free roaming dogs. Or the respondent felt neutral about the number, and that was 58% of people. Followed by I accept this number of free roaming dogs, that was 22%. And then I am happy about this number of free roaming dogs at 13%. I do not accept this number of free roaming dogs, 5%, and only 2% said that I am unhappy with this number of free roaming dogs under SOI. So there is a very high acceptance of the street dogs in Bangkok, in the greater Bangkok area. Perception of change in dogs under SOI over 9 years. So when asked about the number of free roaming dogs under SOI today, sorry, also to clarify, SOI means street, just in case anybody's wondering. So when they were asked about to compare the number of dogs on their street under SOI today compared to 9 years ago, and we landmarked 9 years ago with when Prayut Chan-o-cha became prime minister, the most common statement was that there used to be lots more free roaming dogs on under SOI 9 years ago. In other words, the number of free roaming dogs has declined, or they have noticed it, right? When asked what they thought should be done about free roaming dogs, the most common response was sterilization at 55%, followed by sheltering. This is a huge success for us, as we've been campaigning against sheltering as a dog population management strategy for many years. So this is really very, very exciting for us that people are now seeing the benefits and promoting CNVR as the solution. The KAP survey also allowed us to compare answers from people who lived in different areas receiving different levels of CNVR. So people living in areas with no CNVR versus 1 round, 2 rounds, or 3 rounds. So owned dogs had lower odds of roaming in CNVR areas. This was quite clear and significant. There was a significant difference between all 3 levels of CNVR versus the control. Perhaps then dogs which went through the CNVR program were seen as of higher value, perhaps. Owned dogs had higher odds of being sterilized in CNVR area. And this is also significant. This may be because of the work that we do. You know, we do pick up owned free roaming dogs as well as community and feral dogs. Respondents had lower odds of reporting that they had been annoyed or concerned about a free roaming dog in the last month in CNVR areas, whereas citizens living in control areas, so these zones not yet covered by CNVR, have the lowest rates of happiness or acceptance of stray dogs. In areas, in CNVR areas, respondents had much higher odds of reporting a decrease in the number of free roaming dogs in the past year under SOI. These respondents also had a much higher odds of reporting that there used to be more free roaming dogs under SOI 9 years ago as compared to today. And also these respondents had much higher odds of reporting that they used to be more troubled by free roaming dogs under SOI 9 years ago versus today, which all shows that people are seeing the difference, and they can see the change. Citizens living in areas reached by CNVR are less irritated or concerned by free roaming dogs, whereas citizens living in areas not yet reached by CNVR are the most annoyed or concerned by free roaming dogs. So this is very significant. Also, an important statistic, I think, because very often when designing a CNVR program, one of the goals would be to see a decrease in dog bite incidents, right? So we can see that areas with CNVR, to be specific, with 3 rounds of CNVR versus areas without CNVR, there is the risk of getting bitten by a dog has decreased 4 times, right? This is also very significant. Our KAP survey is evidence of positive impact of our CNVR program on both the owner behavior as well as citizen experience and perception of free roaming dogs in the greater Bangkok area. The KAP survey also highlights the need for increased awareness, humane education, and other interventions, including law enforcement. Further investigation into reasons behind high levels of abandonment, low provision of veterinary care, and non-adherence to mandatory rabies vaccination need to be done to address these issues. Thank you very much for your attention.